Welcome back to the Schaeffer Dialogues, our deep dive into Francis Schaeffer's really profound work. He is there and he is not silent.
Mm-hmm.
This is episode 4 of season 3. And if you joined us last time, we explored chapter 2. That was all about the moral necessity of God.
Right. And today we're moving into chapter 3. This is where Schaeffer tackles what he calls the epistemological necessity, which, basically boils down to the problem of knowledge itself. And specifically, this ongoing struggle, this tension between what Schaeffer calls particulars and universals. It stretches all the way back to ancient Greece, but it's incredibly relevant for you today.
It really is. People talk about the generation gap. Schaeffer would argue it's often at its root an epistemological gap. How we approach knowing itself has shifted dramatically.
That's a really interesting frame. So to get a grip on this, we kind of need to rewind way back to the Greeks, right? Particularly Plato.
Exactly. Plato wrestled deeply with this. Think about it right now. Listening, you're just bombarded with particulars.
Like individual things I see, hear, feel. Thousands of them.
Millions, maybe. Just tiny bits of data. But for any of that to make sense, to have meaning, you need universals. Concepts that bind those particulars together, give them unity.
Okay, so particulars are the dots, and universals are like the lines connecting them into a picture.
That's a good way to put it. Plato saw that without universals, knowledge becomes meaningless, and so do morals. It's just chaos.
Give us a simple example. Schaeffer uses apples, I think.
Yeah, perfect example. You've got Honeycrisp, Granny Smith, Fuji, hundreds of varieties, particulars.
Right, all different.
But we group them all under the one word, the universal concept, apple. That single word gives meaning and allows us to comprehend all those distinct particulars. It's how we organize reality.
And this isn't just about words, is it? Science does this too.
Absolutely. Scientists observe countless particulars, experiments, measurements, phenomena, and what are they trying to do?
Find laws, patterns.
Exactly. They're looking for the universals that explain the particulars. And then you get super laws like gravity or electromagnetism, trying to find the ultimate universals that govern the whole material universe. It's fundamental to how we understand truth.
Okay, so the Greeks, especially Plato, they knew they needed universals. Where did they look?
Well, they tried a couple of paths. First, there was the polis society.
Like the city-state.
More than just geography, but yeah, the social structure. But they were smart enough to see that wasn't enough. Whether it's a 51% vote or even Plato's philosopher kings.
It's still limited.
It's still limited. It's just an average or a particular group's preference. It can't provide a universal standard for all particulars for all time.
So society wasn't the answer.
Yeah.
Did they look higher to the god?
They did. But their gods, well, they had issues. They were personal, which was different from Eastern ideas, but they just weren't big enough.
Not big enough. What does that mean?
They fought. They were flawed, inconsistent. Think about the confusion in Greek myths around the fates. Did the gods control the fates, or did the fates control the gods?
So even their ultimate authorities weren't truly ultimate or consistent.
Exactly. It showed they understood the gods weren't a reliable source for universals, for absolute knowledge or morals. They saw the need for universals, they just couldn't find the source.
That's a pretty profound dead end they hit. So where did things go after the Greeks? This problem didn't just vanish.
No, it definitely didn't. You fast forward quite a bit and you get to Thomas Aquinas. He brought nature, the particulars, back into focus in Western thought in a big way.
Which is different from the Byzantines.
Very different. They were less interested in the particulars of nature. And this shift Aquinas spurred, it even showed up in art. Think about Cimabue, Dante, Giotto. Suddenly, nature becomes important in their work.
Celebrating the physical world, that sounds positive.
It was in one sense, but it also, maybe unintentionally, set up a new tension.
Okay, between what?
Between nature, the particulars, the body, cause and effect in the physical world, and grace, the universals, the soul, the heavenly.
I see. Nature versus grace.
And here's the critical point Schaeffer makes. If nature, the particulars, becomes autonomous from God, if it's seen as existing entirely on its own,
then what happens?
Then, as Schaeffer puts it, nature begins to eat up grace, the particulars start to dominate, and the universals that give them meaning get eroded, lost.
Nature eats grace. That's a striking image. So the meaning starts to drain away.
Pretty much. And Schaeffer argues this is where you see the seeds of modern cynicism being sown centuries ago, this drift away from universals.
Wow. Okay, and then comes Leonardo da Vinci. He seems like a pivotal figure here, almost seeing this unfold ahead of time.
Yeah, Leonardo is fascinating. A brilliant artist, scientist, mathematician. Schaeffer calls him maybe the first modern mathematician because he grasped this dilemma so early. He saw where rationalism was headed. If man starts only from himself, with no grounding in universals...
It leads just to particulars.
Exactly. Mathematics, mechanics, particulars. He foresaw the sort of machine existence where meaning, the universals, are lost.
But he was also an artist, trying to capture something more.
Right. As a Neoplatonist, he tried to sort of paint the universals. It was almost like a humanistic attempt to create meaning from below, a bit like what people try to do today with, upper story experiences, trying to find meaning without a real universal source.
A genius seeing the writing on the wall. Okay, this connects to a major shift in science itself, doesn't it? Early modern science had a different foundation.
It really did. Think of Copernicus, Galileo, Newton, Faraday. Their science was largely born from a belief in a reasonable God who created a reasonable universe.
So they expected to find order.
Yes, and they believed human reason, made in God's image, could investigate that order. They believed in the uniformity of natural causes, sure, but within an open system.
Open meaning.
Meaning God could still act. Man, reflecting God, could act and change things. There was room for something beyond just the mechanism.
But that changed.
It did. The Newtonians, who came after Newton, they kind of extended the machine idea. Eventually, the dominant view became that everything, including us, humans, is just part of the machine.
The closed system.
That's modern science. Uniformity of natural causes in a closed system. No room for God, no real room for unique human significance. Just cause and effect, all the way down.
And that throws us right back to the problem the Greeks and Leonardo saw. If it's all just a machine, how do we know anything for sure? Where's the certainty?
Precisely. And the big attempt to answer that within this closed system was something called positivism.
Positivism. Okay, what's the core idea there?
Well, it's basically the belief that we can know facts, objects with total objectivity. Just observe the particulars, gather the data, and you'll arrive at truth. It became the foundation for modern scientism.
Sounds confident.
Oh, it was. Schaeffer calls it a truly romantic concept. Finite man, starting with no universals, believing he could use his own reason to gather enough particulars to create universals from scratch. Rationalistic man felt pretty powerful.
But it didn't quite work out that way.
Not even close. Positivism kind of collapsed under its own weight. Positivism forgot about the knower. It assumed this perfectly neutral, objective observer who just takes in facts without any bias, without any pre-existing framework or grid.
But nobody's really like that.
Nobody is. We all approach knowledge with presuppositions, with a worldview. There's no innocent eye. Observation isn't neutral.
I see. So the observer affects the observation.
Right. And Schaeffer pushes it further. He says within a purely positivistic system, you can't even be certain that anything exists objectively or reliably tell the difference between reality and fantasy.
Wow.
Yeah, because there's no guaranteed connection between the subject, the knower, and the object, the known. It led philosophers like Karl Popper to conclude, you can only really achieve falsification. You can say what something isn't, but not definitively what it is.
So positivism promised certainty, but ended up leaving us with just probabilities, averages.
Pretty much. Statistical averages, approximations, but no certainty of continuity, no solid ground for truth as truth. The foundation cracked.
Okay, so where does that leave us? Enter Jean-Jacques Rousseau. He seems like another key turning point.
Huge turning point. Rousseau shifted the whole debate. Instead of the old tension between nature and grace, he proposed a new one. Nature and freedom.
And not just any freedom.
Absolute freedom. Freedom pushed upstairs, completely untethered, not just free from God or revelation, but free from societal constraints, free from any external authority or universal.
Can you give an example of that?
Think of Gauguin. He leaves France, goes off to Tahiti to find Rousseau's noble savage. The idea was, if you strip away all the rules, all the structures, man's true, free, good nature will emerge.
But as you said before, it didn't quite work out like that.
No, sadly, but maybe not surprisingly. This pursuit of absolute freedom led to chaos. Not just morally, you saw things like sexual anarchy emerge pretty quickly, but crucially for our discussion, it created massive problems for knowledge.
How so?
If everything is absolute freedom, if there are no universals defining anything, well, how do you know? How do you know that you know? The same problem the Greeks faced comes roaring back.
You can almost picture Plato looking at Rousseau's followers and saying, Okay, smart guy, where are your universals now? How are you going to know anything?
Exactly. And Schaeffer draws a direct line from this thinking to, say, the hippie culture of the 1960s, and even aspects of our culture today, this idea that there are no universals anywhere.
Total freedom. Hedonistic freedom.
But it leads not just to moral confusion, which is bad enough, but to epistemological confusion. If there are no universals, how do you even tell what's real and what's not?
That's a scary thought.
Yeah.
Okay, so this path leads us towards philosophers like Kant and Hegel. They changed how we think about knowing, right?
Profoundly. Before them, logic was largely based on antithesis. A is not non-A. Simple, clear distinctions. If something's true, its opposite is false.
Classical logic. Makes sense.
But Hegel saw that rationalism, based on antithesis, hadn't solved the problems. So she proposed synthesis. You have a thesis, it generates an antithesis, its opposite, but the answer isn't choosing one or the other, it's finding a synthesis, a blend of the two.
So everything becomes relative,
Ah.
blurry.
It relativizes everything. It fundamentally changes the tool of knowing itself. And then Kierkegaard comes along and pushes it even further.
How did he do that?
He basically created this absolute gulf, this dichotomy between reason and non-reason. Reason, for Kierkegaard, only gets you downstairs knowledge, math, science, cold facts without ultimate meaning.
And meaning. Values.
All pushed upstairs into the realm of the non-rational. It's something you have to hope for, leap to, but it's totally separate from reason.
Wow, so that whole progression, Rousseau's freedom, Kant and Hegel's synthesis, Kierkegaard's leap, it just completely flipped the script on knowledge.
Turned it upside down, yeah. Antithesis was replaced by synthesis, and reason was divorced from meaning.
So let's connect the dots for you listening. What are the consequences? Where does this lead?
Well, it leads directly into existentialism, both secular, Sartre, Camus, and religious, Jaspers aspects of Heidegger. The shared idea is that rationality, if followed consistently, leads to absurdity.
Man is just a machine. Zero meaning.
Exactly. Man is a machine, zero, nothing has any ultimate purpose. I am nothing, as Schaeffer puts it, one particular among thousands of particulars. Total pessimism downstairs.
So the only option is?
The leap upstairs into some kind of mysticism, but it's a very specific kind of mysticism.
Okay.
It's completely cut off from reason. And crucially, it's not about connecting with something objectively there. It's often just about words, concepts, internal experiences, what Schaeffer calls semantic mysticisms.
Like trying to find meaning inside your own head. You mentioned the 60s drug culture earlier.
That's part of it, yeah. An idealistic attempt to generate meaning internally when the external world viewed through this lens seems meaningless and mechanical.
This feels like we're circling in on a really crucial figure, Ludwig Wittgenstein. You said he's key?
He really is central to understanding this whole modern predicament. Early Wittgenstein, in his famous Tractatus, basically mapped out the downstairs.
What did he put there?
Facts, the propositions of natural science, things you can verify, test. And he said that is the limit of language, the limit of logic. Anything beyond that.
You can't talk about it.
You literally cannot speak meaningfully about it.
Yeah.
But here's the paradox. Wittgenstein himself was a mystic. He believed there was an upstairs, the realm of ethics, aesthetics, meaning. But what did he place there?
What?
Silence. Because if language is limited to the downstairs facts, then you cannot logically, meaningfully talk about the things that matter most upstairs.
So we need values, we need meaning.
Yeah.
But the philosophical system says silence.
Exactly. Man knows he needs these things, desperately searches for them, but reason, as defined here, leads only to silence in that upper realm. And this is incredibly powerful. It was Wittgenstein's concept of silence in the upper story that directly gave Schaeffer the title for this book. He is there and he is not silent. It's a direct response to Wittgenstein's conclusion.
Wow. Okay, that puts the title in a whole new light. And you can see this silence reflected in culture.
Oh, absolutely. Schaeffer points to Ingmar Bergman's film The Silence as a perfect artistic expression of this. God is meaningless. Nothing meaningful can be spoken from that upper level. Just silence and despair.
So what did Wittgenstein do? Just accept the silence?
Well, it seems the silence was unbearable. It led him and many others into linguistic analysis. This became a dominant force in philosophy.
Trying to find answers in language itself.
Kind of. It was born out of the failure of positivism, but it ended up in a similar place. While it uses reason to analyze words, The conclusion was that language ultimately gives you neither certain values nor certain facts.
So not only are values uncertain, but knowing anything becomes uncertain.
That's the devastating outcome. The certainty of knowing itself crumbles. You're left just analyzing language, but the language doesn't connect firmly to reality or to universal truth.
So modern thought ends up concluding the secret is somehow in language. This is the age of semantics.
At a very basic level, yes. The crucial question hanging over us becomes, is there anyone there, adequately there in the universe, who can speak, whose words do connect to reality and provide universals? Or are we just adrift in this sea of anti-philosophy where optimism died and the alternatives offer only despair about meaning and knowledge?
Okay, let's really bring this home. If we lose these categories, moral, human, reality versus fantasy, what does that actually look like in life? What do we lose?
We lose the ability to make crucial distinctions. Schaeffer uses Antonioni's film Blow Up as an example. The photographer protagonist just clicking his camera, observing him personally.
Capturing particulars.
Exactly. And the film's tagline was something like, murder without guilt, love without meaning. No category for guilt, no category for meaningful love. Just events, particulars, floating free without a universal framework to judge them by.
That's chilling. It's the loss of the universal anchor.
And it goes deeper. The loss of categories means we struggle to reliably distinguish reality from fantasy. If there's no objective framework, how can you be sure what's real and what's just in your head?
So we've lost essentially 4 big groups of categories. You mentioned moral.
Right. 1, the moral category,
Yeah.
right and wrong. 2, the human category, what makes human life distinct and valuable. 3, the category of distinguishing reality and fantasy, knowing what's objectively real.
And the 4th one feels incredibly personal.
It is. 4, the category of knowing other people. How do we bridge the gap between minds? How do we move from observing someone externally to truly understanding their internal world, their thoughts? This is a huge part of modern alienation.
That really hits home. Schaeffer told a story about a couple at L'Abri, didn't he?
Yeah.
Trying desperately to connect.
Yeah, it's a heartbreaking story. This young couple, deeply in love, would talk all night, every night. They were trying to find just one sentence, one phrase that they could know exhaustively together.
Like a shared absolute, a universal point of contact just between them.
Exactly, because there were, in their worldview, derived from the culture, no universals anywhere to provide that connection naturally. So they tried to create one through exhaustive communication.
But being finite.
They couldn't do it. You can't achieve exhaustive knowledge of even one sentence as a finite being. It shows the problem perfectly. Without universals, how do you truly know another person? Language becomes a barrier, not a bridge, if it doesn't connect to shared objective meaning.
So wrapping this up, what does this really mean for you, for us today? We're left in this dilemma.
Yeah, modern man is kind of stuck. Either you're downstairs in the machine where rationalism and language seem to lead nowhere meaningful, no certain values, maybe not even certain facts, just analysis.
More.
Or you take the leap upstairs into a world without categories, a non-rational realm where you can't distinguish human value, right from wrong, or even reality from fantasy. It's, well, Schaeffer says we should weep for our generation.
It's a tragic place to arrive at. Man, made in God's image, designed for communication with God who is there and is not silent, and with each other ends up here in this horrible silence because of prideful reason trying to be autonomous.
It really is tragic. It reminds Schaeffer of that line from Fellini's film Satyricon, watching someone die this utterly absurd death, and the voiceover says, "Oh God, how far he lies from his destination now."
A powerful image of being lost. This whole exploration of epistemology, of particulars and universals, leaves us grappling with some fundamental questions about our knowledge, our meaning, our very existence.
It certainly does. And if you're wanting to explore these ideas further, perhaps engage in more dialogue around them, we definitely encourage you to check out Joseph R. Miller's website. That's morethancake.org.